Let me set the stage for you. So I was talking to some people when our conversation got to movies and what some of the best ones were. You know, we got some answers like Green Mile, Fight Club, Godfather, and a whole bunch of other things. And while there were some that I had seen, like Whiplash, The Mask, and Rhapsody Street Kids Believe in Santa,
Christmas. Yay!
I realized that I hadn't watched a solid amount of these, or at least not all the way through. At most, I knew the concepts and stories, but never got to see the cinematic experience as a whole. So, my solution to this problem would be to make a list of every good movie I've missed, from old 1970s classics to recent 2024 hits, and I will get through all of them. Or at least most. And so it began. I started my journey, and as of today, I've gotten through the first 10 films. But as I was making my way down the list, I thought to myself, hey, my videos are getting a bit more traction, so I could share this list and my thoughts with a whole bunch of other people that like this kind of stuff too. So, here's how this is gonna work. I'm gonna rank the first 10 movies on my list, from worst to best. I'll give my brief thoughts as to why I feel that way, and give the movie a rating out of 5 stars. Once I finish ranking, I'll reveal the next 10 movies, and when I watch them, I'll add them to this very list in another video. And if you're impatient and want to see the full list, or maybe you want to see me go more in depth with the reviews, go check out my Letterboxd at the Anything Zone. Now let's get to the list. Also, spoilers ahead.
Play Golden Eagle today to earn 10x free spins in order to win the gazillion-dollar jackpot.
Coming in last place with 3 stars from me is Martin Scorsese's 1995 film Casino, starring Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Sharon Stone. This is definitely a middle-of-the-road experience. Without a doubt, the Casino Vegas aesthetic is amazing. All of the flashing lights and colorful atmosphere make this a really nice to look at movie. Our stars are incredible. De Niro and Joe Pesci have a great chemistry even as they grow more of a distaste for each other. However, this is a 3-hour film, and it gets repetitive at points. That, combined with some slower dialogue, kept me constantly checking at how much of the movie was left. There'd be parts of De Niro getting into a really nasty argument with his wife. They're both yelling and she's getting thrown out, only for the literal next scene she just walks back in the house as if nothing happened, making an anticlimactic end to the conflict, until they do the same thing again later. The ending scene with De Niro and his wife, though, was hilarious, with her taking the money and crashing out in his yard, but it just didn't feel right to end the movie like that. Joe Pesci's end, however, felt far more fitting, but overall, Casino was okay, with an amazing setting, amazing actors, but just fell short on the pacing and project as a whole. At number 9 with 4 stars from me is going to be the 1979 film Escape from Alcatraz. There's not much to say about this movie other than that it was fun. I was completely invested throughout the entire thing. Seeing Morris always plotting and preparing was super entertaining, and this non-stop action and suspense made up for the lack of development for its characters. So, nothing too special, but it was overall a great experience. Next up at number 8 with 4 stars is Quentin Tarantino's 1992 Reservoir Dogs. To put it lightly, death, 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 torture, death, death. The movie got increasingly better as it went on, unfolding as if you were reading a book at different points rather than from start to finish. And by the time you do put everything together, everyone's dead! The ending was jaw-dropping. I quite literally yelled out a what after seeing that, especially after you get to know these characters. Speaking of which, there was not a dull moment of dialogue between these guys. They all flow together beautifully. Honestly, I would put this higher, but the movies after are just better. For the number 7 spot with another 4 stars is the 1983 classic Scarface. This was an interesting one. While I was watching it, I was wondering what's so special about this. There was mostly dialogue, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it didn't constitute the hype for me. However, when the movie ended and I saw the full scope of the story, I can tell why people love this movie. It's a story about the declining mental state of a wannabe crime boss, how he gets his power, then lets his ego and status be his very demise. Looking back and seeing all of the early signs that Tony is becoming more and more deranged was highlighted at the end, where he feels so powerful, so invincible, that he truly believed he could take on an entire army by himself, which leads to his death. This was such an interesting experience and really got me thinking about it days after watching it. Also, the poster is like one of the best posters for a film ever, so there's some extra brownie points for that.
It's not always about the money, Spider-Man. It's about the Mets, baby. Love the Mets. All right, baby, let's go. Get a home run, baby. Love the Mets.
The next movie to be at the number 6 spot with 4.5 stars is the 1987 thriller The Untouchables. Despite me thinking that the horseback part was a little cheesy, I was certainly impressed by literally everything else. Robert De Niro killed it as Al Capone. He had this presence every time he was on screen that made him feel more powerful than like half of the recent MCU villains. The man in the white suit also had this like insane aura. Picking off each of the Untouchables added to this sense of horror to the viewer, as you never knew who was going to be his next victim. Probably the best scene, however, and one of the best action sequences I've ever seen was easily the train station scene. The sheer intensity and lack of music had me at the edge of my seat. This movie was such a good watch and worth every second.
Man, this ain't my dad. This is a cell phone. I threw it on the ground.
Kicking off the top 5 at 4.5 stars, we have the 1993 crime film A Bronx Tale. I love this movie. First off, Sonny was incredible and beautifully written. His complexion gave so much substance to the decisions that C made, and he wasn't just this evil crime boss that corrupts the youth, but rather someone who's pretty much forced to live by the ideology of being feared over being loved, but doesn't want C to have to live like that. There's a lot of parts that show a sense of duality that C has to pick, and by the end of the movie, he's able to be the best of both worlds, for his dad and for Sonny. Probably the only thing about this movie I have a bit of an issue with is some of the acting. For example, the scene of C talking to the girl he likes felt awkward and a bit forced, but not in the sense of a boy being awkward around his crush, but more so the acting itself felt off. If you watch the scene, you'll know what I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure. But other than that, this was really an incredible movie, packed full of great messaging, characters, and action that will keep you hooked.
But rest assured, dear viewers, we here at the Daily Bugle will not rest until we've uncovered the truth.
I'm SpongeBob.
At the number 4 spot with a whole 5 stars is 1998's The Truman Show. This is easily one of, if not the best concepts for a film I've ever seen. Jim Carrey proved that he can not only play in comedies, but also scenes with serious and deep tones. Watching Truman struggle with this sense of paranoia as he begins to see his world crumble. The creator playing this role of God over Truman, and the ending is perfect. Truman drops one of the hardest lines ever, then leaves.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
And then the movie ends. He left the show, and the show finally ended.
Yeah.
This is hands down one of the best movies I've ever seen, and it was really difficult deciding between this and the number 3 spot. Also at 5 stars, that being Quentin Tarantino's 1994 magnum opus, Pulp Fiction. In terms of concept, I'd give it to The Truman Show, but I simply cannot put it over Pulp Fiction, as it performed probably the best opener to any film ever. The dialogue is rich and never gets old, and I mean that. Quite literally, every moment of dialogue is entertaining. They could talk about, like, the most random stuff and just ramble, and it would still be entertaining. The film takes so many directions and stories that are all intertwined with each other. From scenes that are just straight talking, to chaotic, beautiful messes of trying to save someone from an OD. This is truly one of the best movies ever made, and with amazing performances from every actor involved, and also had this chaotic pacing that makes it even better. So what can top that masterpiece? Well, at the number 2 spot, again at 5 stars, being the 1990 Scorsese film, Goodfellas.
Hey, Jimmy, where you going? I don't know where I'm going. My dad died.
This is the best coming-of-age story I have ever seen. Henry quickly becomes not a character you just see, but a character you feel through his happiness, anger, fear, etc. Henry, Tommy, and James all flow perfectly. The movie shows not just the changes characters make, but also how the world changes as well, with new ways of making money like drugs. This really is a masterpiece that easily deserves all the praise it gets. However, this, and every movie before it, crumbles at the number 1 pick. This film is so beautifully crafted, so well paced and written, that I felt it was unfair to watch a movie like this so early on in the list. And I strongly believe that this will stay at the number 1 spot for a while, if not forever.
Hey man, you gotta let me out of here.
Oh, okay.
Obviously being ranked 5 stars, that movie is the 1994 Shawshank Redemption. This is by far the best movie I have ever seen. And I understand that a lot of people say that, but they're not wrong. Watching how prison life affects different people, some see prison as, well, prison, others see it as a home. So much so to where the outside world is overwhelming. They represent corruption and greed and exploitation so well. They could have made this a 10-hour film and I would have watched and enjoyed every second of it. The dialogue was beautiful and the stories were beautiful. Even from like smaller side characters, they still mastered their development. Especially Brooks. I find him to be the prime example of how to do a side character. As Brooks doesn't just add to the prison aesthetic, just being another prisoner, but also adding to the topic and the message of what prison does to someone. I recommend this movie to everyone, and I guarantee you will not be disappointed. And that's the list. But before we go, here are the next 10 movies that will be added in the future. We have Fight Club, 8 Mile, The Green Mile, Star Wars A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, Dunes Part 1 and 2, Django Unchained, and lastly, Braveheart. Now, if those aren't movies you want to see my thoughts on, then I don't know what is. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I know this wasn't like a big topic discussion, but I thought this was a small, fun thing to do, so why not, right? But let me know in the comments where you would rank these as I try to reply to them all. Anyway, that's it from me. So yeah, bye.